So I've seen on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts, I've seen a lot of people kind of updating their top 5 list of current wrestlers right now. I think it was Narcolepsy Boy on TikTok who kind of got the trend started. But I thought I wanted to jump on top of this. I wanted to get on top of this because I think it's about time. Now, I'm not a big fan of GOAT list. I don't love the idea. I do them every so often because I like to piss people off, but I'm not a big fan of just definitively saying this person is the greatest of all time, because in wrestling, that is so subjective. It is so subjective in professional wrestling to first off compare guys of different eras is a joke, right? To compare Hulk Hogan to someone like Roman Reigns is a joke, right? Just culture is different in general. Like the amount of entertainment content there is to consume is just ridiculously different than when Hulk Hogan was on TV. So it's hard to really get a grasp on who is more over with crowds, who's a better wrestler. I guess you can argue the X's and O's, but even then, that kind of stuff is so subjective. So when I make these lists, it's fun. I speak in definitives. I all the time go, this is the greatest wrestler of all time. But really what I'm speaking from is my favorite, in my opinion. Like I got a lot of shit the other day for calling the Usos the GOATs of the tag team division. But I mean, like, that is my opinion, and it's based on the things that I find interesting in professional wrestling. And I get that not everybody is going to share that opinion, but like, you have to know when you're watching my show, you're going to get my GOATs. You're going to get my opinions. But I thought after seeing everybody do this, it looked like fun. I had nothing better to do today on the podcast. So I want to update my top 5 wrestlers of all time. I want to see, and then I want to see what everybody else's top 5 wrestlers of all time are, because mine change. Mine changed quickly. I looked when I sat down to make this list, and Bianca Belair, who was on my top 5 list of wrestlers all time, she's just become a little bit uninteresting. And that's how quickly my opinion can change. I am fickle, if that's what Bryan Danielson wants to call me. It's called being a human being. I don't even know that I like restaurants that I liked last week. So how am I going to have professional wrestlers that stay my favorite forever? It's just not going to happen. I change my mind. My opinion changes. And so when I sat down to make my top 5 list of professional wrestlers of all time, I surprised myself a little bit. There were names on here that I didn't think were going to be on here. And there were names that were omitted from this list that I can't believe are not on my list of top 5 wrestlers of all time. And let's jump right into it. This is all time. This is my top 5. It's not who I think are the 5 greatest wrestlers. This is my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. And we'll start with, and this is in no particular order, but we'll start with Kevin Owens. I still like, to this day, I think Kevin Owens is the best all-around professional wrestler in the business right now today. Don't at me. Don't argue with me. Just intensity, his ability to be funny, his ability to be serious, his how hard he works in a match. I don't know that there's anybody who compares in the business right now. It's hard for me to do it. And even if I look at wrestling as a spectrum of all time, Kevin Owens is one of my favorite guys. He just is. I started watching in the Attitude Era. So I don't have this affinity for the Macho Mans. I don't have an affinity for the Hulk Hogans. I didn't watch much WCW, so I'm not, the NWO doesn't play a big part in my life. The Goldbergs, those people. So my list is very rooted in the Attitude Era and current wrestling. I've had 3, and I've gone over this, but I'll go over this for anybody who hasn't heard me say it. I've had 3 kind of pivotal points of watching wrestling in my life. It was in middle school, I watched the Attitude Era. So that stuck with me. That was kind of my base and core of what my wrestling knowledge came from. Then around 2010 to 2014, I was in my financial freedom years where I had just disposable income, and I thought I was going to go to every WrestleMania. So for about 5 years in a row, I went to WrestleMania. I was hardcore. I was basically an IWC member, thought I was super hipster, thought I knew everything. And so I went through that phase, got rid of that phase. And now as a dad, as a parent, I watch wrestling with my kids. I watch wrestling for fun. I watch wrestling to do this podcast. And so those are kind of the 3 points of my wrestling journey to see where my knowledge comes from. And in that journey, Kevin Owens has become one of my favorite wrestlers. Point blank, just simple. It's easy. Another person who's one of my favorite wrestlers is Christian. And this has been for a long time. This is in the Attitude Era. I was a huge fan, but more so around 2010, 2011, when he was doing some of the stuff with Alberto Del Rio and Edge, and he was involved in all of that kind of stuff. I've just always liked Captain Charisma. He's just something about him has always appealed to me. And I got excited when he went to AEW and he had a little bit of a run, and then that kind of cooled off. I would love to see him get one last run in WWE. Maybe something with Edge would be fun, where they come back together for one last run. But Christian was always somebody. I loved his theme song. I loved his finishing maneuvers, his moves. Just the whole package deal of Christian was something that I enjoyed. Thirdly is The Rock. What can you say? I mean, I think on everybody's list of professional wrestlers, of favorite wrestlers, you have either The Rock or Stone Cold. And I could have put both on my list, but I don't know. When I look back, I enjoyed Stone Cold, but I don't know that he was ever my favorite wrestler. But The Rock was. The Rock was definitely one of my favorite wrestlers. Don't even need to list the reasons why, right? If you know me and you know my casual mentality, it is the package deal when it comes to a wrestler. And The Rock had every part of that package, right? Theme music, finishing moves, personality, charisma, size. He was the casual fan's dream, whereas Stone Cold was a little bit more rough around the edges. Still had everything. I'm not going to argue he didn't have everything. But The Rock was the commercial guy, right? And Stone Cold was the wrestling guy. And so that's why I think The Rock makes my list, and Stone Cold probably number 6, if I have to say he's number 6. Number 4 is CM Punk. Somebody who I know is taking a lot of flack. Somebody who I haven't been a huge fan of in his last run with AEW. I thought he did a lot of things wrong. I thought he was booked poorly. I thought he came back with the wrong mentality. He tried to be humble, but I think that's not what anybody wanted from CM Punk. We weren't looking for humbleness. We were looking for that grit and that guy that went against the grain, and we didn't get it. But back in the summer of Punk, and this is why it's funny, because I take shit all the time, because I talk about the summer of Punk and I talk a lot about how CM Punk was never the face of the WWE. He was never the main wrestler or the top guy on the WWE roster. And people look at me as like I'm shitting on CM Punk. He was my favorite wrestler at the time, hands down. I was always more a CM Punk guy than I was a John Cena guy. I just understand the reality of who was really carrying the torch and who was trying to find their way at that point in time. But CM Punk has always been someone who kind of resonated with me. I've always liked the guy who goes against kind of the company toe line. So CM Punk resonated with me. I thought, he was always, I like guys who can talk. So I like MJF. I like guys who sometimes are a little bit undersized, that have a little bit of an underdog mentality. Not undersized to the point of like not believable, but I like the guy who falls like that one ring under the gladiator size. I think that's where CM Punk always kind of fell. So the straight edge stuff always appealed to me, because I've never, I don't drink. I've never done drugs. I've always been a pretty straight edge athlete. So all that stuff in my 20s appealed to me. And so CM Punk is a guy who falls on this list. Definitely there was consideration not to put him on the list after everything that's happened. But when I look at an overall picture of professional wrestling, CM Punk has really carved out a space inside my head. And I think a lot of what I compare other wrestlers to is what I loved about CM Punk in that the late 2000, like 2009, 2010, 2011, that little bit of area is where I really kind of, that's where my heart is with CM Punk. And then lastly, this is the guy that I call the GOAT. This is the guy, and he gets on my nerves, and I argue with this, and I fight with this inside my own head, but I love him. It's Chris Jericho, man. Chris Jericho is one of my favorite, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. He's just the amount of times he's recreated himself, the way he works the crowd, the way he's able, like he even irritates me, and then I go, that's right, that's Chris Jericho. That's what I love about him. That's my guy, man. And I've had arguments with people about Chris Jericho's not the best. I just have to believe he is. He did it in WCW. He did it in WWE, and he's doing it in AEW. And it's hard for me to find anybody else who their longevity, even The Undertaker, when we write The Undertaker and we go, he had this long, illustrious career, but there was a lot of points in time in The Undertaker's career where he wasn't the main feature. He wasn't the main guy. You could argue that The Undertaker was never the top guy. That while he was always one of the top guys, you could argue that The Undertaker was never the top guy in professional wrestling. That it was Stone Cold, that it was John Cena, that it was The Rock, that it was Roman Reigns, that in all these different points in The Undertaker's career, there was always somebody who was just one step above him. But I don't think you can make those arguments with Chris Jericho. I think that there was a point in time when Chris Jericho was the undisputed champion, that he was as big as those Attitude Era, The Rock, Stone Cold. He was standing toe to toe with those guys. And I think you can't argue that his trip to AEW has been, if nothing less than eventful and fruitful. And he's created some memorable moments and some memorable characters. And that's why Chris Jericho is on my top 5 list of wrestlers all time. Now, this is funny. What's funny about this is some of those names don't translate over when I talk about my top 5 current wrestlers. And that's the next list I'm about to put out here, is my top 5 current wrestlers in WWE. I'm not going to do AEW because I just don't think I will do AEW. I'll do AEW in a separate list. I'm going to do my top 5 current WWE wrestlers, and we'll go from here. Starting with Kevin Owens, of course. He translates over. But then we go to Becky Lynch. And this was a toss-up. This was a toss-up between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. And if you asked me 6 months ago, Bianca Belair was on this list. But she's just not a front runner. She's not a champion. She does okay with the championship belt, but she's not as interesting when she is the champion versus when she's chasing the championship. And for that reason, I've lost a little bit of interest in Bianca Belair. Nothing against her. She's probably right outside my top 5. But I think if I'm putting the two together, Becky Lynch is the more interesting of the two WWE superstars. So I go Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch. Third on my list is Tommaso Ciampa. And while he's injured right now, Ciampa's someone that I'm kind of new to, but I've kind of taken a liking to. I'm very interested in him. I went back and watched some of his NXT stuff. It was very interesting to me. There's just something, maybe it's the bald head. I watched a documentary about him and when he was injured. There's just something about him that I kind of connect with. And so I'm excited to see where we go. I was excited to see or to hear the reports that he was going to be returning back to kind of his NXT form and gimmick and leaving The Miz. So hopefully when he comes back from injury, we'll get to see all that. So I'm excited to see where that goes, but he stays on my list. Right now, he is one of the wrestlers that I'm, currently most interested in. Number 4 would be Gunther. Gunther is somebody I asked a question about 6 months ago. I said, you guys tell me what's special about Gunther. And you guys had me go back and watch a couple different matches, and I get it. This guy has Notorious D written all over him. He's big, he's physical, he's a gladiator, he's brutal, he chops the shit out of you. Then I got to see his match with Sheamus, and I was sold. I love Gunther. I am all in on Gunther. The whole package deal, I like Imperium, and so every Friday I look forward to seeing what's going on with Gunther. That's why I'm not super excited about all the Ricochet stuff. I would like to see him in a more interesting situation than that. The Braun Strowman stuff interests me a little bit more. But Gunther is definitely on that list. And then last, this is the one I take shit for all the time. This is the one that I take shit for all the time when I bring this up. But Shotzi, man. Shotzi is one of my favorite wrestlers. And I think it's a combination of maybe just some of the things she's gone through, her personality outside of the ring. I think that there is so much potential inside of the ring for Shotzi. She's just got to get it all together. She's got the right look. She appeals to little girls. She's kind of a role model. The whole horror freak thing is a cool gimmick that I think is genuine to who she is. And I've said numerous times that I think she is a perfect blend between Paige and Sasha Banks. She's just got to pull it all together. And so those are my top 5 current WWE superstars that are my favorite to watch and that I kind of root for. It's Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch, Tommaso Ciampa, Gunther, and Shotzi. So I'll do an AEW list, even though I admittedly am not the biggest AEW fan. I watch it, I consume it, but I'm very, my list is going to look funny because it's very casual. It's a very casual. I would say that when people go, you're not a casual fan, I think you point to this AEW list and you'll go, oh no, this guy's a casual fan. Because some of these names that are probably omitted from my list, people are like, how is he not a fan of FTR, How is he not a fan of Wardlow? I'm just not. At this point, I'm just not. I'm not sold on those guys. So my top 5 current AEW superstars right now would be MJF, Orange Cassidy, Adam Cole, even though he's not currently wrestling, I still love Adam Cole, Chris Jericho, and Britt Baker. That's it. There's not a lot to it. It's probably 5 of the most commercial people in AEW, but that's who I gravitate to. I like Orange Cassidy. I like Adam Cole. Like Jericho. Love Britt Baker. Britt Baker's really high on my list. MJF. I'm surprised I didn't put Britt Baker on my top 5. Well, not of all time. She's not all time, but she could get there. So that's I thought I'd update those lists. It'll probably change in 3 months. And that's the beauty of professional wrestling, right? That's the beauty of this idea that, and I fucking blame Bryan Danielson, right, for throwing out the word fickle. Yeah, these fans are so fickle. No, man, that's the beauty of professional wrestling. We can change our minds. I can have 5 favorite wrestlers today, and 3 months from now, come March, come around my birthday, I turn 38 years old, I may have 5 new wrestlers that I love. There may be something that happens on TV, and I am 100% a prisoner of the moment. I am the flavor of the week guy. I tend to, what is happening on TV directly affects not only my current favorites, but my all-time favorites. That's just the way that's just the way it works. And so that to me, you will call me fickle? For sure, I'm fickle. I'm fickle as fuck. I don't care. Whatever. One thing I'm not going to do is lock into 5 people and then dig my feet into the sand and argue about those 5 people when I may not be passionate about those people 3 months from now. I'm just not going to do that. I did, just for fun, I put together my list of the 5 least favorite wrestlers that I think other people are actually fans of. And I just want to throw these out there because these are always fun to get people's opinions on. Number 1, Hangman Adam Page. I just don't understand the whole passion for Hangman Adam Page. And someone told me, well, to understand Hangman Adam Page, you have to go back and begin his journey in New Japan Pro Wrestling and watch some of the early AEW stuff. Not gonna do it. Anybody who's listened to me and knows me knows I'm not going back and doing that research. If I have to go back, if Hangman Adam Page can't sell me on his character in the last 10 weeks of wrestling, I'm not going back to New Japan. First off, I'm not watching New Japan Pro. But secondly, I'm not going back and researching the last 5 years of you wrestling so that I understand why you mean something today. You're not doing your job if you can't make me like you today. Secondly, it's Darby Allin. I 100% understand the appeal of Darby Allin. I understand who he is being marketed to. I understand that every time I talk about Darby Allin, there's this hardcore group of like under 5'5" kids who come after me and tell me what an asshole I am. I get it. Like, I understand he is the emo kid. He is the to me, he's pretty much the opposite of who I am. And so I understand that, but he's not, like, he doesn't appeal to me at all. The recklessness in the ring doesn't appeal to me at all. Driving his car over the top of his house doesn't appeal to me at all. That kind of shit just makes me go, wow, that guy doesn't appreciate life. Like, that guy just is probably going to die by the time he's 40. And none of that appeals to me. As a person with a family, as a person with a wife, I'm not looking to die. I'm not looking to do anything stupid that gets me closer to dying. So Darby Allin doesn't appeal to me. Number 3 on my list is Dominic Mysterio. And this is probably partially because I have so much fun fucking with the Dominic Mysterio fans, but it's also just because the nepotism, man. The nepotism kills me on Dominic Mysterio. He's not ready to be on the main roster yet. You guys continue to humor yourself, and by you guys, I mean the Dominic army, continue to humor themselves into trying to convince themselves that Dominic Mysterio belongs where Dominic Mysterio does not belong. And he does not belong on the main roster. He belongs on NXT. He belongs in some kind of indie circuit where he could hone his skills. Do I think he may eventually get it? I think there's a small chance he gets it. But even then, I don't think he's built for professional wrestling. I don't think he has the personality. I don't think he has the acting chops. I don't think that there's a package you can put together that doesn't involve him being Rey Mysterio's son that works on television. And I just think that the Rey Mysterio's son act will wear thin after a long time, especially if he never just takes on the Rey Mysterio moniker or never just fully commits to the Eddie Guerrero. But now I think that he's tried to kind of commit a little bit to the Eddie Guerrero, and I just don't think he's capable of doing it. And so I'm not, I don't hate Dominic Mysterio, but he's one of my least favorite wrestlers. The next one pains me a little bit because I think she's gotten better, but Liv Morgan is someone I'm just not a fan of because I think people overrate Liv Morgan. I think when Liv Morgan was champion and when she was kind of on her way to becoming champion, you guys, I'm using you guys. And actually, it's not my listeners when I say you guys. I'm talking to the IWC when I say you guys. But the IWC tends to, they elevate Liv Morgan, number one, based on that she's a pretty girl. There's no doubt about that, right? The IWC, the basement dwellers that sit in their mom's basement on their computer looking at the dirt sheets all day, they elevate Liv Morgan because she's a pretty girl. That's one, they love that. But they're willing to take the attractiveness and overlook the fact that she can't cut a promo or that she can't hold her own in the ring. Now, some of this stuff she's been doing lately, some of this little bit of like Jeff Hardy that she's inherited, I will admit has been extremely more interesting than what she did when she was champion. So if I had to say someone was like moving and trending off of this list, it would be Liv Morgan. But for the time being, Liv Morgan's on there. And last but not least, it's Omos. Yeah, we're being force-fed Omos. I don't need to tell you guys why. Omos is just, he's not interesting. And every time he gets a little bit interesting, he disappears. So I don't know what Triple H's plan is with Omos, but it's not interesting to me.